I was born and bred on this property. I'm 68 years old. I run sheep and I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease roughly 3 years ago.
Parkinson's is the fastest growing neurological disorder in the world. By the time patients come to Professor Wesley Thevathasan, a specialist in Parkinson's, many are already dealing with symptoms that have changed their lives.
I've got the classical movement problems, slowness, stiffness, tremor, gait problems, falls sometimes, cognitive issues as well.
But in some Australian farming communities, the question isn't just what Parkinson's does, it's why so many seem to be getting it.
There's 4 guys around here, and we all got it about the same time. I mean, what was it, sunspots on the sun?
There is a lot of Parkinson's in this family. David's father and his uncle both had it. His brother-in-law has it.
Yes.
It's really very, very prevalent in this community.
For years now, some farmers have been drawing a link to paraquat, a powerful weed killer.
As a teenager, I waved a flag for an aeroplane to spray paddocks with paraquat, and I can recall people blowing out nozzles with their mouth. Wearing gloves was for pansies.
Have you blowing the chemical up on your face all the time you're out spraying? You'd be saturated and you stay in those clothes all day.
The chemical companies have got a bit to answer for.
And while it's already banned in over 60 countries, including the UK and China, it's still used widely on Australian farms. This month, the chemical regulator is expected to make a final decision on whether it can keep being used here, after a review that's been going since 1997. Professor Thevathasan is one of about 50 neurologists who made submissions to that review, calling for it to be banned. But he says the regulator has ignored them, as well as some of the strongest evidence linking paraquat to Parkinson's.
These reflect the peak scientific minds who know about Parkinson's disease wrote to the regulator close to 2 years ago. And as far as I know, there's been no engagement at all. I haven't heard anything. I've spoken to others, they've heard nothing.
I'm Daniel James, and you're listening to 7am. Today, Professor Wesley Thevathasan on the farmers who fear paraquat made them sick and whether Australia's chemical regulator is listening. It's Friday, June 19. Wesley, you said farmers are overrepresented amongst the patients you see. Tell me about that. What are you seeing from them?
Well, yes, I see a lot of farmers as patients, and this literature goes back to when I was a medical student. We've long known that a childhood upbringing is an increased risk. It's increasingly understood that the role of pesticides in that risk is being understood better. And even in Victoria, we have quite good evidence that there tends to be a strong clustering of the diagnosis in farming communities.
And you believe that one pesticide in particular, paraquat, could be to blame. Where does that concern come from?
Yeah, well, certainly the evidence is by far the greatest for paraquat causing Parkinson's disease amongst all the pesticides.
Even as there's widespread agreement about its toxicity, for years, some of the world's leading scientists have also published studies saying that pesticides like paraquat can also lead to an elevated risk of developing Parkinson's.
And look, multiple research groups from around the world looking at different data sets who are independent of one another have found, using what we call epidemiological studies, that Parkinson's disease, the risk is increased by exposure to paraquat.
There's clear-cut epidemiology showing the exact use of pesticides in terms of how many pounds per acre, which specific areas got treated with what pesticides, and what the incidence of Parkinson's disease is that correlates with that.
That is also coupled with viable biological mechanisms, because we know, for example, that paraquat can alter the shape of a protein called alpha-synuclein. And what happens is that alpha-synuclein, once it's changed in shape, it actually can spread throughout the brain from entry in the nose and from entry in the gut.
Loss of smell and shoulder pain are among the early symptoms. Tremors, slowing of movement, difficulty sleeping, and stiffness can come later. Then, in more advanced stages, loss of cognitive ability.
Paraquat also looks chemically looks a lot like an agent called MPTP. It's an agent that we know can destroy dopamine cells in the brain, and that's a core feature of Parkinson's disease. So look, there's lots of different angles to approach this question, and they're all leading to the same understanding that paraquat is associated with a greatly increased risk of Parkinson's disease.
So you've noticed the risks, you've had a look into the science behind it, and so you've gone to speak to the communities themselves at forums in rural areas. What are farmers and families telling you at those meetings?
Well, I guess the people who are attending those meetings by their nature are selected to be those who are perhaps open-minded, and they're genuinely concerned. They just want to hear what the facts are. They want to understand whether they're at risk, whether their previous exposures have put them at risk, and more, even just as important or more important, is whether their families are at risk who are living in these rural communities. And there's many patients with Parkinson's disease who are farmers who come to those meetings as well, and they're not looking for someone to blame. They just want to understand how they got the condition and whether a registered legal product in Australia may have contributed to their risks. So they're just looking for factual answers. I think they don't realise until I present to them what's been going on. When I present them that information, that I often get gasps in the audience. My concern, though, is that lots of people aren't feeling this way because it's been somehow politicised. I mean, there's another group of farmers, maybe the ones that are the loudest in the farming lobbying groups, who have a different perspective. Their perspective is, this is doctors against farmers. You're trying to take away a product which is extremely helpful for us to increase our crop yields. And I say to them, this is not about doctors against farmers. This is doctors against diseases that occurs in farmers and their families. So we're on the same side.
There's been a fair bit of pushback from the Australian Farmers Federation, which says paraquat is essential, particularly because of its suitability to Australian conditions. What would removing this product do to their livelihoods, Wesley?
Well, here I want to say that I'm a scientist. I'm not a farmer. I don't have any good understanding of the importance of paraquat to their crop yields. But this doesn't mean that we should bury our head in the sands and say that there's nothing wrong with this agent and let's carry on. And we need to, at a minimum, be honest and truthful about the risks associated with it. I follow up by saying that paraquat is banned in 70 countries, the EU, it's banned in Switzerland, it's banned in China, and yet Australia still allows it. So, other jurisdictions have managed to farm effectively without paraquat. Interestingly, Switzerland has banned paraquat despite the fact that Syngenta, the company which makes it, is actually headquartered there. And China has banned paraquat despite the fact that Syngenta manufactures paraquat in China. So, Australia is really amongst a very shrinking group of countries that are still permitting use of that agent.
Coming up, the vested interests benefiting from a never-ending paraquat review.
How long have you been reviewing paraquat for?
So the paraquat started being reviewed in 1997, I think. And
so it's been the review has been ongoing since 1997.
Constantly evolving and constantly changing, so there's been milestones along the way.
Wesley, the chemical regulator here, the APVMA, they've been looking into this since 1997, and there still isn't a final decision on whether to ban this herbicide. Why has that been going on for so long?
27 years is a long time.
It is.
I don't think I had a mobile phone or an email address 27 years ago.
I may have had my first Motorola.
You must have been a technological trailblazer. I don't know if I had one, but over that time period, the evidence has grown So despite the fact it's been on ice, the growing scientific consensus around the world that paraquat causes Parkinson's disease has increased.
Is that not concerning that we can have a 30-year review of a herbicide that in the meantime is being banned left, right and centre, including by a whole range of countries in West Africa that I assume don't have the resources that the APVMA would have available to you?
The scientists that we have working on this, looking at the data that they have available to them, are the very best that exists around the globe. So I'm going to be comforted by the quality of the scientists we've got working on the assessments. The fact that...
I don't want to comment on why the APVMA have taken so long. I'm not an expert in their processes and I don't speak for them. I just find that it's atypical. And I guess one of the questions I would ask is, who benefits from a 27-year delay in a scientific review? It's not people who are exposed to paraquat who could have been prevented from developing Parkinson's disease over that time frame.
I mean, if you were to have a think about who does benefit from this delay, Wesley, who would you surmise does?
Who benefits from the delay in regulating, say, smoking? Who benefits from the delay in regulating anything? It's presumably the people that make the products. You know, listeners can draw their own conclusions on that one.
And as a part of that, there's been a lot of industry resistance and pushback to regulation, has there not? There
has been. And Syngenta, which is one of the major producers of paraquat around the world, has been pushing back now for decades, claiming that there is no link between Parkinson's disease and paraquat.
I'm Dr. Phil Botham. I'm Principal Science Advisor for Syngenta Product Safety. I used to be the Global Head of Product Safety for the company. I absolutely agree that paraquat is safe for farmers and growers to use. There is no causative link at all between paraquat exposure and Parkinson's disease.
I mean, you'd expect them to say that, right? Companies are not entities with morals. They're entities that are designed to make a profit, and that's completely understandable. But then we shouldn't take our lead from them. We should see through their desire to make a profit, and we should ask our regulator to protect us.
As late as 2024, the regulator's position was basically that the evidence still isn't strong enough to prove paraquat is causing Parkinson's in people who use it at work. Are you saying that assessment is wrong?
Yes.
Straight up and down?
I have read these outputs they've created, and I must say, I mean, as a scientist reading what's purported to be a scientific output from an Australian regulator, I've found it deeply troubling. The 2024 paper was very similar to the 2016 paper. The major landmark studies from around the world that use epidemiology to draw a link between paraquat and Parkinson's disease, they ignored almost all of them. So these are not even cited in these so-called scientific reports that the APVMA have produced. They didn't even acknowledge them, let alone deal with them. I mean, these are epidemiological studies which look at how populations of people who are exposed to paraquat in their daily lives, whether they're applicators or in rural communities, it compares their risk of Parkinson's disease to controls where that exposure did not occur. And time again, these studies have reproduced the same finding, that paraquat is associated with a roughly threefold increased risk of Parkinson's disease. And importantly, the greater the exposure, the greater the risk. And these are multiple groups from around the world. And when you piece it all together in one of the highest forms of science called a meta-analysis, well, there's been two of those, and they also corroborated the increased risk of Parkinson's disease. And look, this is the same way that we showed that smoking causes lung cancer. And these studies, the ones I've just been talking about, are not in the APVMA technical reports. Or one of them was, but they also weighted that against a Syngenta study that looked at paraquat exposure in the factory workers who used to make the agent decades ago. So it's just, I do not understand. I mean, these reports wouldn't pass the first test in a science degree.
Do you have any faith that the regulator will ban paraquat at some point?
Honestly, not without political pressure. I mean, this has been now, 27 years of inaction. I'm glad that, the media is now looking at this. That's the sort of pressure we need. This is why, I'm talking to you now, I guess. I think public pressure, parliamentary action, the medical community is pretty united on this, not only in Australia but around the world. There's growing consensus around this, and I think that may, pressure the regulator, because looking at their previous technical report, I don't really hold much hope in them looking at the science in a way which would be reasonable. But I am happy to be surprised. I would love to be surprised.
Professor Wesley, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. It is much appreciated.
We've reached out to the regulator for comment. The APVMA says it acknowledges the reporting on concerns about a possible association between paraquat exposure and Parkinson's disease, but says it cannot preempt the findings of its final regulatory decision, which remains due in mid-2026. It says agricultural chemicals are assessed through an ongoing monitoring, scientific review and statutory safety criteria, and that approved products must be used according to strict label instructions. Also in the news, the US and Iran say an interim agreement to stop military action and reopen the Strait of Hormuz is now in effect. The deal includes a 60-day window for a final agreement, Iranian commitments not to develop or acquire a nuclear weapon, and US moves to ease sanctions, release frozen Iranian assets, and support a reported reconstruction fund. However, despite Israel's inclusion in the agreement, Israeli forces have continued military operations in southern Lebanon. Iran has warned further attacks or continued occupation would breach the deal. And Western Australia's largest prison is again under scrutiny, with a new inspection report finding conditions at the Casuarina prison have deteriorated amid ongoing overcrowding and staff shortages. Inspectors found the prison is regularly operating above capacity, with some inmates sleeping on the floor. The report says long-running problems identified in previous inspections, including overcrowding and ageing infrastructure, have intensified, limiting access to healthcare, family contact and rehabilitation programs. Around 2/3 of prisoners at Casuarina are being held on remand, despite the prison being designed primarily for sentenced inmates. I'm Daniel James, you've been listening to 7am. We'll be back tomorrow.